We are going to talk about the poem A Man of Words and Not of Deed by Charles Perrault. Please remember that as we read this poem, you will find that it is very much related not only to the society about whom Charles is talking, but to our own society as well. Charles Perrault, he was born in 1628 and he died in 1703. He was a French poet and author. He laid the foundation for a new literary genre, that is the fairy tale. He was an influential figure in the 17th century French literature and was the leader of the modern fiction. Some of his best-known fairy tales are Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Puss in Boots, The Sleeping Beauty, and Bluebeard. If you are familiar with these fairy tales, you will notice that they are basically the stories of people who were in a kind of a suffering, but they overcame those sufferings through good deeds. This particular poem, it is very thought-provoking. It was translated by Robert Samba, who was a British writer and a translator who was chiefly remembered for his translations of Charles' stories. This poem, it highlights the importance of work in one's life. Some people, they are always talking and boasting. They do not like to do any practical work. A person who does nothing in life for others is like a garden which is full of unwanted plants, whereas a person who does everything for others and is trying to make their lives happy and enjoyable is considered a great person by the poet. A man who always talks and boasts and is not involved in any deed is like a garden full of useless plants and weeds. Once it is grown, it further aggravates the situation like snow in winters. With the death of a person, all activities stop. It is therefore very important and necessary that a man, as long as he is alive, must engage himself in some fruitful and useful activities. This will make his life pleasant and he will be useful for his fellow beings and humanity. A man of words is always ahead of others in speaking and in talking and in boasting, but when it comes to action, he fails to deliver the goods. The poet wants us to be a man of action and deeds and not just of talk, talk and talk. The poet targets those people who only talk and perhaps talk big and they don't do anything. He wants us to teach a lesson that we should lead a life which is useful for others, which is not just boasts and which is not just speeches. There are people who keep having big goals, but they are doing nothing to achieve them. We must try to strive towards achieving what we want. A man should not be extremely talkative. To the poet, a man must be a man of action so that he is useful for his society, which is actually the duty of every human being. The poet gives us the message of practicality. He advises us to be positive in every walk of life. We should engage ourselves in some kind of productive activity. We must not be talkative only and believe in the dignity of work. We will look at the first 4 lines of the poem, A Man of Words and Not of Deeds. We will look at some of the difficult words as well and the explanation. A man of words is a man who only talks a lot, and a man of deeds is a man who is doing something. Weeds are wild or useless plants. The poet criticizes and condemns those people who are more talkative and who are just making tall claims. but they are not good, or they are not kind enough to take part in some kind of productive or healthy activity. He is explaining the different phases of a life of a talkative man by comparing his first phase of talk and useless boast with an unwanted plant, and then in the second phase he is like a garden which is full of snow. He calls them a garden which is full of unwanted plants instead of flowers and trees. As these weeds, they are harmful for a garden, and as they take away the energy, or as they take away the actual essence from the earth, and they render useless plants useful. This society becomes useless because of these people. The poet says that a man of words who does nothing, he is always gossiping and boasting and talking. It is like an unwanted wild plant in the garden. He is useless and he is worthless. The poet says that once the weeds they start growing, they spoil the beauty of the garden like snowfall in winter. As in winter, there is no vegetation because of the snow. Snow again is used as a symbol of inactivity and death. When the garden is full of snow, it hampers or it impedes the growth of fruitful trees and plants in the gardens. A man who is always talking is like that snow. He always talks big and claims a lot, but never participates in any useful work. Life goes on, and in the end, a man of word dies without doing anything for others. A garden full of weeds is unable to give any fruit or provide any shade. Similar is the life of a person who is full of useless words. The life becomes fruitless with deeds, not with mere use of words. Such a man is not aware of the real purpose of life. The poet, through comparison, has mirrored the futility of actions of such a person. An idle person who amuses the people through flattery and promises is as useless as a garden which actually appears to be green but is only full of useless plants and harmful weeds. A talkative person, he is building castles in the air only to hinder the progress, just like heavy snow, it hinders the growth of the plants and it blocks the roads. A talkative person is just like a house of cards, and spiritually and emotionally he is hollow. Our bodies, they are also like gardens in which our wills are the gardeners. It is the will that trims it shapes the plant of life, and it nourishes to an inflexible and mature tree of determination, and a tree is known by its fruit, not by its roots. We must value time and opportunity to fulfill our responsibilities, and only those people are successful who give practical shape to their thoughts and ambitions. Now we will look at the lines 5 to 8 of the poem, A Man of Words and Not of Deeds. A bird upon the wall, a bird sitting on the wall. Eagle is a bird of prey which flies very high in the sky. The poet is comparing snowfall with the life of an inactive person who is only talkative and he does no valuable work. He is useless for others. A talkative person is bereft of all his emotions. The poet is explaining the third phase of a talkative person's life. In the third phase, the poet compares him with the bird which is sitting idle. In the fourth phase, as an eagle which is flying very high in the sky but without any aim. or without any target in mind. A man of words and not of deeds is like a wet bird, which cannot even move anywhere to save itself from snow and from frost. The poet says that when snow falls, it makes the lives of these birds miserable, as they cannot fly actively and they can't do anything for themselves. They shiver with cold, but they sit on the wall passively. They do not move from there. A person who is a man of words makes the life of other people disgusting and uncomfortable. Just like an eagle, which is difficult to catch after it is flying away. A talkative person never gets self-respect. We will look at the lines 9 to 12 of the poem, A Man of Words and Not of Deeds. Roar is loud, deep sound as of a lion. Crack is to break. In these lines, the poet is explaining the fifth phase of a man who is only talkative. When he sees death at his doorstep, it is as if he is looking at a lion. When the clouds thunder and roar, it appears like death in the farm of a lion at his doorstep. When death knocks at his door, he feels restless and very uncomfortable. He starts feeling backache. The poet says that a man of words and not of deeds can never prepare himself to do anything important or worthwhile. He always tries to get refuge in excuses, and he tries to hide behind the curtain of his boasts and fruitless words. The poet says that the roaring of the sky that seems to be that of a lion at the door that frightens the man and hinders the man to take any action now. His time is over. His time is finished now. When the door begins to split or break, the fear of the man of words and of no deed increases. The shudder of fear is running through his body and rendering him spineless. He feels his back beaten with the stick. The stick and line, they may be symbolized as responsibilities to which he has been turning a blind eye or showing his back. The poet says that the traits of a talkative person who is like all the time talking about himself and singing his praises as if he is a lion himself. But ironically, he is a coward, and with his cowardice is revealed, he loses courage to face the people in society or the people around him. Through his flattery, he has stabbed the people in their backs. He is fascinated by boasting and baseless gossip rather than advice. Such a person doesn't possess courage to face any situation in life. Over here, we are looking at lines 13 to 16 of the poem, A Man of Words and Not of Deeds. Smart, it's the feeling or it which causes a sharp pain. Penknife, it's a small knife, and bleed is to pour out blood. The poet is talking about the sixth phase of such a man's life. He says that when he falls ill and suffers from dangerous diseases, in this last phase, he might die of a heart attack. His condition becomes very pitiable and he suffers from suffering in his heart. His heart is bleeding and it brings him death. Because an impractical man, he has never worked and he dies in a very miserable condition. The roar of the lion and the crack of the door strikes on the man's back like a stick. The pain on the back of the man who shirks back, it's just like the stabbing of a knife in his heart. The poet says that a man of words and not of deeds is never alive. He has actually died a death long time before the death has actually come to him. When he falls on the thorns of life, his life is ruined. His heart starts bleeding. The bleeding of his heart, it renders him dead. It is not alive in the real sense of the word, as life is the name of actions, not just mere talk. We are required to have a very pragmatic and practical approach towards life. Life is precious and it must not be wasted in idle talk. We should spend life for some meaningful and fruitful purpose. And a talkative person is very unreliable and he is a kind of a hidden danger of the society. He brings discomfort and discontentment to the life of others. Inquiry or injury or harm is caused by tongue, and this injury is deeper than that of a sport. The word of a talkative persons are just like sweet poison. They easily trap and they easily nurture on the innocent people, and it injures their hearts in such a way that they cannot be healed. After this stage, a man becomes spiritually, intellectually, morally, and socially dead and destroyed. We should lead a life which is useful and beneficial for others. We should lead an active life which is not just mere words or boasts, but it is practical application of what we say, so that we are useful for others and we are actually the man of deeds.